When it comes to calculating and taking a required minimum distribution, who is responsible for what? I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. Video number 2 in a series that we're doing on required minimum distributions, both the basics but also some advanced planning strategies. This is the second video, and we're talking about who is responsible for what. Now, that might sound at the surface a little confusing, but you have different parties, different individuals involved with overseeing your retirement accounts, and they, as it relates to required minimum distributions, RMD, they have different rules. Now, to set the stage here, I'm recording this at the beginning of 2024, and over the Christmas break, the week between Christmas and New Year's, one of our family friends, we were together with their family and the kids were playing and all that, and he actually works in the financial industry as well, just has a different role than I do. He works mostly for an investment company, and yeah, he was struggling because of all of the folks that he serves. There was one individual that still needed to take their required minimum distribution. And it was to the point where, all right, the families, they came over, the kids were playing, we were just enjoying company, then we went out to lunch together, and then after, the kids had a little bit more playtime, and he had said right at the beginning, hey, I might get a call from this client there, I need their authorization to take their required minimum distribution. And yes, actually during our few hours together, the client did call. He needed to step away for about 20 minutes and handle it, simply because, yes, there are different roles that people play that are involved in taking your required minimum distribution. So there's the investment company. So your 401k provider, your IRA Custodian is what it might be called. Then there's you, and then there's your financial advisor. Okay, so you each have different roles. Your investment company, or the investment custodian, so in this case, this would be Fidelity, or this would be Vanguard, or this would be whoever the company is where your investments are held. What's their responsibility with required minimum distribution? Well, likely they are going to calculate what that RMD is, what that required minimum distribution is, and they're going to notify you of that requirement and that amount. Now, I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek because technically it's going to be your responsibility. Get to that here in just a second. But many organizations take it upon themselves to say, well, we're going to do that calculation and we're going to send you out a notice or some sort of letter that explains, hey, you've got this requirement and here's the amount that you need to take. Many companies, say for Fidelity, if you haven't withdrawn your required minimum distribution by October or September, they'll send you that letter. If you've already taken it, then you won't receive one. Other companies, they're going to send it to you at the beginning of the year. Other companies even still, so they might add it as a calculation on last year's 1099, the tax form that they sent to you. But for the most part, even though it's not a legal responsibility, the investment company or the custodian, where your IRA or 401k is officially held, they are likely going to calculate what you're required to take from that account, from that specific account, and likely send you that notice in some sort of letter or notification saying you're at an age where you need to withdraw a certain amount out of your IRA or your account with us. Here's the amount that you must take out before the end of the year. So that's the investment company's job, but I sort of already kind of alluded to it. Well, what's your job? Your job is to officially make that withdrawal, take that distribution. This was the situation my friend was in where he couldn't do it for him, this client. They needed to acknowledge, yep, we want to take this money out of our account. So ultimately, it is your responsibility. And if we look at the actual IRS documentation on this, they squarely state that even though the investment company may calculate the amount for you, it's really still your responsibility to do the calculation and withdraw the right amount from the right account by the correct deadline. So that deadline is 12/31. It's got to be withdrawn by the end of the year, end of the calendar year. The only exception is in the year in which you are turning that first required minimum age, that 73 in this instance. You could actually delay your first required distribution until April 1st of the following year, but then you'd have to take that first year's RMD by April 1st, and then take your second year's RMD by 12/31. So you'd actually have to take 2 required distributions in that same calendar year, and that could mean a bigger impact on your tax return. And sometimes it may make a lot of sense, but those are usually rare instances. If you fail to make that withdrawal, take your required minimum distribution by 12/31, there's a penalty. That penalty used to be 50%, so one of the stiffest tax penalties out there. That's not just 50%, the penalty is 50%, but you then have to pay the income tax on the withdrawal. And so if you were if you were supposed to take out 10 grand and you forgot to do it, you failed to do it, the penalty would have been 5 grand, but then that 10 grand would be income on your tax return. And let's say there's another $2,500 of tax on top of that. So that would be, pretty painful. This was a painful thing. You didn't want to miss it. Thanks to the Secure Act 2.0 that was passed at the end of 2022, starting in this year, 2023, that penalty for failing to take a RMD timely has dropped from 50% down to 25%. So still a very steep penalty. 25%, that's going to hurt, but much less severe than the 50%. Still, there's even a condition where if you correct it, or if you figure it out and correct it within a short period of time, a couple of years, that penalty is just 10% as opposed to 25%. So they've really laxed these rules, and I think it's because they've made RMDs so stinking confusing. I mean, go to the video number 1. They've made RMDs extremely confusing. So there is still a penalty. It's gone from 50% down to 25%, and in some instances could even be 10%. Finally, there is even the ability to say, hey, there were other factors at play here. Can you erase the penalty completely? And there is an option for that. There's an opportunity for that. You'd have to fill out this form. There's certainly no guarantee. I've seen them grant the exception. I've seen them not grant the exception. So if there were other circumstances involved, you could always fill out the form and see if you could get that penalty waived. All right, so finally, that was the investment company's role, your role. Then what's your financial planner's role? What's your financial planner's role? Well, they're going to help make sure that you withdraw the dollars. They're going to remind you as well, but their role is much bigger than that, actually. Their role is to strategize for your required minimum distribution. And what types of strategies? We're going to hit those within this series, but a couple of them could be, well, what if you have multiple IRAs or multiple pre-tax accounts? Should you take your RMDs from each of them, or should you just isolate one account or a couple accounts and take all of your required minimum distribution from those? So they're going to strategize if you have multiple accounts. What investments should you actually sell when you're making the withdrawal? They might say, your financial planner might say, yeah, take the RMD out of this investment as opposed to that investment. What about tax withholdings and doing that proactive tax planning? Absolutely. We've talked about some of the challenges with RMD, and that it could cause more of your Social Security to become taxable, could have some other trade-offs as well, pushing you into a different tax bracket, wreaking havoc on capital gains taxes, and maybe even subjecting you to income-related monthly adjustment amount, so IRMA. And so they're going to help figure out, well, how much should you withhold for taxes and so on. And then they're also, like I mentioned, IRMA or some of those other drawbacks, they're going to help you determine strategies so that you hopefully can avoid some of those pitfalls, some of those drawbacks like IRMA or moving into another tax bracket. So your financial planner's role is, yes, to help calculate, is, yes, to ensure that you take it. So it's sort of both of those first two responsibilities, but more so is to strategize with that RMD, help you withhold, help you withdraw from the right investment, help you figure out if there's other strategies you need to consider. So as always, but especially with RMDs and RMD planning, work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.